good evening, or good night, wherever you are in the world and however your day has unfolded. You are welcome here. Tonight we are stepping quietly backward in time to a world without alarm clocks, without glowing screens, without electric light humming in the background. A world where sleep was not a single, uninterrupted act, but a ritual of belief, and sometimes a strange and deeply symbolic performance. This is the story of how people slept in the medieval world, and how their nights were filled with customs that may seem bizarre, comforting, or oddly familiar. As you listen, there is nothing you need to do. You don't need to remember names or dates. You don't need to stay awake. Just allow the words to pass through your mind, like footsteps echoing down a long stone hallway, slowly fading into silence. In medieval Europe, nightfall changed everything. When the sun slipped below the horizon, darkness arrived quickly and completely. There were no streetlights, no bedside lamps, only the weak glow of candles and the restless flicker of hearth fires. Sleep in this world was shaped by darkness itself. Most people did not sleep the way we do now. They practiced what historians call segmented sleep, also known as first sleep and second sleep. After dusk, families would gather, eat a simple meal, say their prayers, and lie down, often fully clothed, sometimes wearing nightcaps to preserve warmth, and according to belief, to protect the mind from wandering spirits. This first sleep lasted a few hours. Then, without alarm, without fear, people would wake, not briefly, not accidentally. They expected it. The waking hours between first and second sleep were considered normal, even useful. People prayed, reflected on dreams, visited neighbors, shared intimacy, tended fires, or simply sat in the quiet darkness, listening to the wind press against wooden walls. Sleep was not rushed. It was woven gently into the night. Beds themselves were symbols of status, and sometimes superstition. For peasants, beds were simple wooden frames, or straw pallets laid directly on the floor. The straw mattress, known as a palliasse, was often filled with hay or dried leaves, sometimes lavender, to discourage insects. For wealthier households, beds became elaborate structures, almost like furniture castles. Four-poster beds rose tall above the floor, surrounded by heavy curtains. These curtains were not decorative. They were meant to trap warmth, block drafts, and according to medieval belief, keep away unseen forces that roamed the night. To sleep without curtains was to expose oneself, not just to cold, but to spiritual danger. Medieval people feared the night, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, ever-present sense. Darkness was believed to be a time when boundaries thinned, between worlds, between dreams and waking, between the living and the unseen. This belief shaped bedtime rituals across Europe. Before sleep, many families recited prayers aloud, specifically asking for protection against nightmares, night hags, and wandering spirits believed to sit on the chest of sleepers. In some regions, knives were placed beneath pillows, iron believed to repel malevolent forces. In others, shoes were set beside the bed to confuse spirits attempting to count sleepers before attacking. Even the direction one slept mattered. Facing east toward the rising sun, was believed to bring spiritual safety. Facing north, in some traditions, invited misfortune. Dreams were taken very seriously. Medieval dream books circulated widely, offering interpretations for nearly every imaginable vision. Dreaming of water meant travel. Dreaming of fire meant conflict. Dreaming of falling teeth was often interpreted as a warning of illness or death. Because dreams were considered messages, people avoided falling asleep too quickly. They eased into sleep deliberately. This is one reason medieval bedtime rituals were so slow, so repetitive, so calming. Monks, in particular, structured sleep with precision. In monasteries, sleep was governed by bells, not alarms. Monks slept on narrow wooden beds, often with minimal bedding, as discomfort was believed to strengthen spiritual focus. They rose during the night for matins, a prayer service held in near total darkness. Sleep for them was fragmented by design. It was never meant to be indulgent. It was meant to be obedient. And yet, despite the rigidity, many accounts describe the night prayers as deeply peaceful, voices echoing softly through stone halls, candles flickering gently, the outside world silent. For ordinary villagers, bedtime rituals were practical and oddly comforting. Fires were banked carefully to last through the night. Doors were barred. Animals were settled nearby for warmth. Families often slept together. Parents, children, sometimes even servants, sharing body heat and security. Privacy was rare, but loneliness was rarer still. Stories were told quietly before sleep, familiar ones, repeated often, not for excitement, but for reassurance. One of the strangest medieval sleep beliefs involved sleep posture. It was widely thought that sleeping flat on one's back invited nightmares. This position was associated with the sensation of being pressed upon, what we now recognize as sleep paralysis. Medieval people called this presence the night hag. To avoid her, sleepers were advised to lie on their sides, or even partially upright. Some beds were designed with slight inclines, long before modern medical recommendations. Even bedtime clothing mattered. Sleeping naked was rare and often considered improper or unsafe. Clothing was believed to protect the soul during sleep, keeping it anchored to the body. Loose garments were preferred. Tight clothing was said to trap bad dreams. Caps were worn to prevent heat loss, but also to shield the head, the gateway of thought, from nocturnal influence. As the night deepened, sounds changed. No distant traffic, no mechanical hum, only wind, fire settling, occasional footsteps on dirt paths, the soft breathing of others nearby. Sleep arrived slowly, left gently, and returned again. There was no pressure to sleep perfectly, only the quiet acceptance of night as it was. As you listen now, your breathing may already be slowing. That is okay. You are doing exactly what medieval sleepers did, allowing darkness and story to carry you. In the next section, we will drift further into the medieval night, exploring strange shared beds, communal sleeping halls, and the curious rules governing who could sleep beside whom. For now, let your thoughts loosen. The night is long, and there is no hurry. As the night deepens and the world outside grows quieter, we continue our slow walk through medieval sleep. In this part of the story, we step into shared spaces, crowded rooms, and beds that were rarely meant for just one person. To modern minds, the idea may seem strange, even uncomfortable. But for medieval people, sharing sleep was normal, expected, and sometimes carefully regulated. Privacy, as we understand it today, was rare. Most medieval homes consisted of one or two rooms. At night, these spaces transformed into sleeping chambers. Parents, children, relatives, servants, guests, all sleeping within the same walls, often within arm's reach. This was not seen as unusual. It was practical. Shared warmth meant survival through cold winters. Shared presence meant safety against fire, against intruders, against fear itself. Beds were valuable objects. They were often listed in wills, passed down through generations, sometimes worth more than tables or chairs. Because beds were scarce, they were shared. Married couples shared beds. Children shared beds. Travelers shared beds with strangers. Even inns operated on this principle. At a medieval inn, it was common to sleep beside someone you had never met before, separated only by a blanket, or sometimes not separate. This arrangement was not considered intimate. It was simply sleeping. There were, however, rules, unspoken but firmly understood. Sleeping was not meant to invite conversation, or movement, or disruption. Once settled, sleepers were expected to remain still, to respect the shared space. Turning too often or fidgeting was considered rude. Snoring, though unavoidable, was sometimes blamed on moral weakness. In larger households, communal sleeping halls existed. Long rooms lined with simple beds or pallets. Candles extinguished early to prevent fires. In these halls, silence ruled. Talking after lights out was discouraged, sometimes punished. The night was meant for rest and reflection, not noise. In castles and noble homes, sleeping arrangements became more complex. Lords and ladies slept in private chambers, but servants often slept nearby, sometimes on trundle beds pulled beneath larger frames, sometimes on the floor at the foot of the bed. This proximity was not always about service. It was about protection. A sleeping noble surrounded by trusted bodies was less vulnerable. One of the strangest customs involved bed witnesses. In certain regions, important events, such as marriages or alliances, required witnesses to confirm that a couple had shared a bed. These witnesses did not remain long. They observed briefly, then withdrew. The presence of others in a bedroom, even at deeply personal moments, was normalized. Sleep spaces were social spaces. Even sickness changed sleeping arrangements. The ill were often moved closer to hearths, or surrounded by others at night to monitor breathing and prevent sudden death during sleep. Sleep was fragile, and so it was guarded. Children, in particular, rarely slept alone. Fear of the dark was not dismissed. It was expected. Parents believed that solitude invited bad dreams and wandering thoughts. Children were tucked in beside siblings or placed between adults. The presence of others was believed to anchor the mind, keeping it from drifting too far during sleep. In monasteries, communal sleep reached its most disciplined form. rows of identical beds, uniform spacing, minimal bedding. Monks slept clothed, belts tied loosely, ready to rise at the sound of bells. No curtains, no pillows of luxury. Sleep was necessary, but never indulgent. Yet even here, comfort crept in quietly. Accounts describe monks adjusting straw, finding familiar positions, breathing in unison. The human need for rest persisted, even under strict rule. Silence in these shared spaces was profound. Without electric hum, the smallest sounds carried. Breathing, fabric shifting, wood creaking. These sounds became a rhythm, a lullaby of presence. Many medieval writers describe falling asleep not to quiet, but to togetherness. Another curious rule governed who could sleep beside whom. Age, gender, status. These factors shaped sleeping arrangements carefully. Men and women were often separated except within marriage. Children slept with children, servants with servants. Disorder at night was believed to lead to disorder in life. Sleep was moral. Travelers often found shared beds unsettling, yet strangely comforting. After long journeys on foot, the warmth of another body, even a stranger, meant safety. Stories tell of travelers falling asleep mid-sentence, exhaustion overpowering caution. Sleep erased differences. As the hours passed, first sleep faded, and the waking interval returned. Some rose quietly from shared beds, careful not to disturb others. They prayed, stretched, reflected, then returned to rest, slipping back beneath blankets as second sleep arrived. If you are listening now, your own awareness may be drifting. That is natural. Shared sleep, shared rhythm, shared story. These are ancient comforts. In the next section, we will explore medieval bedtime superstitions, charms, protective rituals, and strange objects placed near beds to guard sleepers through the night. For now, there is nothing you need to hold on to. The night is gentle. As the night grows deeper and thoughts become heavier, we turn now to the quiet rituals meant to protect sleep itself. For medieval people, falling asleep was not automatic. It was an act that required preparation, intention, and often protection. The world after dark was believed to be active, not loud, not chaotic, but watchful. Before lying down, many households performed small rituals, simple gestures, repeated nightly. A cross traced on the chest, a whispered prayer, a phrase spoken so often it lost conscious meaning and became comfort instead. These words were not spoken in fear. They were spoken in habit. Habit soothed the mind. Beds were surrounded by protective objects. Iron knives beneath pillows. Keys hung near headboards. Small bags of herbs tied with string. Iron was believed to repel harmful forces. Keys symbolized control and closure. Herbs like rosemary, sage, and lavender were thought to calm the spirit and discourage bad dreams. Their scent filled sleeping rooms softly, especially when crushed between fingers. Some people placed religious texts beneath mattresses, not to read, but to absorb protection. The words themselves were believed to radiate safety, even unread. In homes without books, symbols were drawn instead. Simple marks carved into bed frames. initials of saints, or shapes repeated again and again. Candles played an important role. They were extinguished deliberately, never blown out carelessly. To blow out a candle too quickly or in anger was believed to invite unrestful sleep. Many families said a final phrase before darkness fell, a signal to the body. It is time. Mirrors were covered at night in some regions. It was believed that uncovered mirrors could trap wandering dreams or reflect unwanted visitors. Covering them brought peace. Shoes were sometimes turned upside down, not for tidiness, but to confuse spirits searching for sleepers. Even animals were involved. Cats were welcomed near beds, their presence believed to ward off unseen harm. Dogs slept near doors, their restlessness considered a warning system. Livestock beneath sleeping lofts added warmth, and constant, grounding sound. Life breathing through the night. One widespread fear was the wandering soul. It was believed that during sleep, the soul traveled. To protect it, sleepers avoided sudden waking. Being jolted awake was thought to risk losing part of oneself. This belief encouraged gentle mornings and slow awakenings. Nightmares were not dismissed. They were addressed. If someone suffered bad dreams repeatedly, they were advised to adjust sleeping direction, change bedding, or cleanse the room with smoke from burning herbs. Sometimes entire sleeping spaces were rearranged, not for comfort, but for harmony. Children were taught bedtime prayers early, not long ones. Simple phrases. Repetition was key. The words became familiar, safe. The rhythm of prayer eased the mind, just as your own breathing may be easing now. In some regions, people believed in dream thieves, invisible beings who stole good dreams, leaving exhaustion behind. To prevent this, objects were placed near the bed. A stone, a bowl of water, a comb. These items were said to distract intruders, giving the sleeper rest. Even illness influenced sleep rituals. The sick were surrounded by protective charms. Windows opened slightly to allow bad air to escape. Fresh night air was believed to cleanse dreams. Silence was respected deeply. Loud laughter before bed was discouraged. Strong emotions were believed to linger into sleep. Calm led to calm. As hours passed, first sleep ended. Waking returned, then second sleep arrived gently. The night unfolded in layers, each one softer than the last. If your thoughts are drifting now, you are not losing focus. You are resting. The mind listens even as it lets go. In the next section, we will explore medieval beliefs about dreams themselves, prophetic visions, strange dream manuals, and why sleep was thought to reveal hidden truths. For now, allow the story to fade slightly. You are safe. As the night settles fully and the body grows heavier, we drift now into the medieval world of dreams. For people of the Middle Ages, dreams were not random. They were messages, sometimes divine, sometimes symbolic, sometimes warnings delivered softly. Through the language of sleep, dreams were believed to travel, not outward but inward. They were thought to reveal what waking eyes could not see. Hidden fears, unspoken hopes, events yet to come. Because of this, sleep was treated with respect. Dreams were not ignored. Medieval dream books circulated widely. They were copied by hand, passed from home to home, their pages worn thin. Each symbol had meaning. Water often meant travel or emotional change. Fire suggested conflict or passion. Flying was rare and often interpreted as pride. Falling was associated with loss or imbalance. These interpretations were memorized, not questioned. People shared dreams openly. In the morning, during meals, by the hearth. To dream was to receive something worth discussing. But dreams were also fragile. Talking too much about them, or too loudly, was believed to weaken their message. Certain foods were avoided before bed. Heavy meats, strong spices, too much ale. These were said to invite chaotic dreams. Light meals were preferred. Bread, cheese, water. Simple nourishment led to gentle visions. Sleeping posture influenced dreams. Lying on the right side was thought to encourage holy dreams. The left side, more dangerous. Flat on the back was avoided. This position was linked to oppressive dreams and visits from the night hag. Some people slept with objects meant to guide dreams. Relics, small stones, written prayers folded carefully, placed near the head. They were believed to shape the sleeping mind. Dreams of the dead were especially significant. They were not seen as memories, but as visits. These dreams were approached carefully, with quiet respect. People believed the dead spoke only when necessary. Children's dreams were protected. Parents asked gently in the morning, never demanding details. A child's dream was believed to be especially pure and easily disturbed. Nightmares were treated seriously. If one occurred, the sleeper was comforted, not dismissed. The dream was analyzed, its cause identified. Perhaps a broken rule, perhaps spiritual unrest, perhaps simply exhaustion. Sleep was moral, but also human. Some dreams were believed to foretell death. These were not spoken of lightly. Silence was protection. As second sleep deepened, dreams grew longer, more vivid. The body rested, while the mind wandered gently. If you are listening now, your own dreams may be forming. They may be faint, unclear. That is fine. The medieval world believed that even unremembered dreams served a purpose. They soothed the spirit. In the next section, we will explore medieval fears of the night itself, creatures believed to roam after dark, and why sleep was considered an act of courage. For now, rest where you are. There is no need to follow every word. The night will carry you. The medieval night was not empty. It was quiet, but never truly still. For people living centuries ago, darkness was not simply the absence of light. It was a presence of its own, a time when familiar shapes disappeared and imagination softened its boundaries. To fall asleep was an act of trust. Without artificial light, night arrived suddenly. Shadows stretched, sounds sharpened. The mind became more aware, not less. This awareness shaped how medieval people understood fear. Fear was not loud. It was patient. Stories circulated about what moved in the dark. Not always monsters, sometimes intentions, wandering spirits, restless souls, creatures that thrived in silence. These stories were not always told to frighten. They were told to explain. The most common night figure was not dramatic. It was subtle. The night hag, a presence believed to sit on the chest of sleepers, stealing breath, clouding dreams. Many medieval descriptions of the night hag align closely with what we now call sleep paralysis. But to medieval minds, this experience required explanation. And explanation became ritual. To ward off the night hag, sleepers followed rules. Never sleep flat on the back. Keep iron nearby. Say protective prayers slowly, clearly. Some placed brooms beside the bed. Believing spirits would be forced to count the bristles and lose interest before finishing. Counting distracted danger. Windows were sealed carefully. Not tightly, but thoughtfully. Fresh air mattered, but so did boundaries. Too much openness invited unrest. Travel at night was avoided whenever possible. Those who traveled after dark slept lightly. Their sleep was shallow, broken, and alert. To sleep deeply in unfamiliar darkness was considered risky. Villages grew quiet after sunset. Noise attracted attention. Even animals sensed the shift. Dogs barked less. Birds disappeared. The world held its breath. Church bells marked night hours. Their distant sound reassured sleepers. Someone was awake. Someone was watching time. Fires were watched carefully. A dying fire meant cold and vulnerability, but too large a fire meant danger. Balance mattered. Medieval people believed sleep made the body vulnerable. The soul wandered. The senses dulled. To sleep was to surrender briefly. This is why bedtime rituals mattered so much. They prepared the body and the unseen self. Some people slept with lights burning faintly. Others believed total darkness was safer. Beliefs varied, but intention remained. Sleep required preparation. Children were taught not to fear darkness, but to respect it. Fear was managed, not eliminated. As the hours passed, fear softened. Second sleep arrived deeper, heavier. Dreams grew slower, less vivid. If you are listening now, your body may feel distant. Limbs heavy. Thoughts blurred. That is how medieval sleepers described deep rest. Not unconsciousness, but distance. In the next section, we will explore medieval sleep medicine. Physicians advise odd remedies, and the belief that sleep could heal or harm. For now, you are safe here. The night has grown quiet. In the medieval world, sleep was not only rest, it was medicine. Physicians believed the body healed itself most fully at night, when the senses quieted and the mind loosened its grip. Sleep, when done correctly, restored balance. When done poorly, it invited illness. Medieval medicine was guided by the theory of humors. Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Health depended on balance. Sleep affected all four. Too much sleep caused sluggishness. Too little caused heat and agitation. The right amount brought harmony. Doctors offered detailed advice on sleep. When to sleep. How long. In what position. After which meals. Sleep was not casual. It was prescribed. Most physicians advised sleeping shortly after sunset. Night air was believed to cool the body, calming excess heat. Sleeping too late into the morning was discouraged. Morning air was thought to stimulate digestion and clarity. Sleeping posture mattered greatly. On the right side first to aid digestion, then turning to the left to encourage balance. Flat on the back, again, was discouraged. This position was associated with breathing difficulty and troubling dreams. Beds were sometimes adjusted for health. Wood blocks placed under bed legs. Straw replaced regularly. Fresh bedding was considered medicinal. Aromas played a role. Physicians recommended herbs near the bed, rose for calm, mint for clarity, violet for sadness. Smell influenced dreams and mood. Sleep was used to treat grief. Those suffering loss were encouraged to rest, not to escape, but to soften pain. Sleep was believed to cool emotional excess. Insomnia was recognized, but explained differently. Worry heated the blood. Thoughts disturbed the humors. The cure was routine. Same bedtime, same prayers, same rituals. Consistency healed. Some remedies seemed strange now. Warm wine before bed, milk mixed with herbs, placing lettuce leaves on the chest. These methods were meant to induce coolness and heaviness. Sleep after illness was watched carefully. Too much rest could slow recovery. Too little could exhaust. Balance again. Physicians warned against sleeping during the day. Daytime sleep was thought to weaken night rest and confuse the body. Short rest was acceptable. Long naps were not. Bedrooms were kept simple. Clutter disturbed sleep. Order calmed the mind. As night deepened, medicine yielded to rest. No more prescriptions. No more analysis. Just sleep, doing what it had always done. If you are listening now, your own body may feel loose, unconcerned with position or posture. That is fine. Medieval doctors believed the best sleep came when the body stopped trying. In the next section, we will explore strange medieval bedtime rules for kings and queens, ritualized sleep, and why even royalty rested under watch. For now, rest deeply. The night continues, without urgency. As the medieval night stretched onward, even kings and queens surrendered to sleep. But royal sleep was never simple. It was observed, structured, surrounded by ceremony. To sleep as royalty was to perform rest, not retreat from the world. In medieval courts, the bed was not a private object. It was a symbol of power. Beds were enormous, towering, layered with fabrics, and raised high above the floor. Curtains enclosed the sleeper like a small room within a room, not for luxury alone, but for warmth and separation. Royal bedtime followed strict routines. Servants prepared the chamber hours in advance. Fires were adjusted carefully, sheets warmed, candles placed precisely. Nothing was left to chance. The act of going to bed could involve witnesses, trusted nobles, ladies in waiting, attendants. They observed the ruler retiring, sometimes remaining until sleep arrived. This was not intrusion. It was assurance. Kings were rarely left alone while sleeping. Guards stood nearby. Servants rested within call. Sleep was vulnerability, and vulnerability required protection. Even dreams were considered political. A ruler's dream could be interpreted as prophecy. Courtiers listened carefully the next morning. A dream of victory, of fire, of falling, all were noted. Sleep itself became part of governance. Queens followed similar rituals, often sleeping separately from kings, except when custom required otherwise. Royal couples did not always share beds. Marriage was political. Sleep followed duty. Beds themselves were objects of superstition. Certain woods were avoided. Certain colors favored. Red fabrics symbolized strength. Blue brought calm. Green was sometimes avoided, associated with unpredictability. Royal children were watched closely at night. Nurses slept nearby. Candles burned softly. A child heir's sleep was a matter of state. Despite luxury, royal sleep was not always restful. Noise echoed through stone halls. Drafts slipped through walls. The weight of expectation followed rulers into dreams. Some monarchs suffered from sleeplessness. Worry, responsibility, fear of betrayal. Physicians prescribed rest, music, herbs. Soft instruments were sometimes played quietly, outside chambers, to calm the mind. The concept of privacy was still forming. Royal chambers were busy spaces. People entered and exited throughout the night. True solitude was rare. Yet even within ritual, sleep eventually arrived. Breathing slowed. Thoughts softened. The body claimed rest, regardless of rank. As the night passed, royal households shifted. Guards changed. Fires dimmed. The palace breathed quietly. If you are listening now, your own surroundings may feel distant. You may no longer picture rooms clearly. That is expected. Long stories, spoken softly, mirror ancient lullabies. In the next section, we will drift away from palaces, back to ordinary lives, exploring seasonal sleep, winter darkness, and how medieval nights stretched longer as cold settled in. For now, let the story blur. You do not need to stay awake. The night has plenty of time. As we drift onward through the medieval night, we leave the glow of palaces and guarded chambers and return to the slow rhythm of ordinary lives. Lives shaped not by clocks, but by seasons, by light and its absence. In the medieval world, winter changed everything. Days shortened dramatically. Darkness arrived early and stayed. Sleep expanded to fill the long night, not all at once, but in layers. Rest was not measured in hours, but in cycles. During winter months, people slept more, not because they were lazy, but because darkness invited stillness. Work slowed. Travel became dangerous. Cold discouraged movement. The body responded naturally. Sleep stretched longer, deeper, more frequent. Families gathered indoors early. Fires burned low and steady. Stories were repeated, familiar, unchanging. Repetition was comforting. Nothing new was needed. First sleep began soon after dusk. People lay down while the day's final warmth faded from the room. The body cooled gradually. Sleep came easily. Between first and second sleep, waking hours felt longer in winter. There was no rush to return to bed. People sat quietly, mended clothing, prayed, or simply listened. Wind pressed against walls. Snow muted distant sound. The world felt far away. Second sleep often lasted until dawn or longer. Waking before sunrise was rare in winter. Light dictated life. In colder regions, beds became deeper. More layers, more blankets, more shared warmth. Straw mattresses were refreshed more often to maintain insulation. Sometimes animal skins were added. Comfort was survival. Sleeping clothes grew heavier. Wool garments, thick caps, wrapped feet. Cold toes were believed to disturb dreams. Warmth protected sleep. Windows were covered tightly. Shutters closed. Cloth hung. Drafts were feared, not only for discomfort, but for illness. Cold air was thought to enter the body during sleep, weakening it. Yet fresh air was still valued. Some left small openings just enough. Balance again. In winter, people dreamed differently. Dreams were described as slower, darker, more symbolic. Long nights allowed the mind to wander further. Dreams of snow, of animals, of distant journeys. Seasonal depression was not named, but recognized. Melancholy increased in winter. Physicians recommended light, music, company. Sleep helped, but too much sleep was thought to deepen sadness. Once more, balance. In monasteries, winter schedules shifted. More time indoors, longer hours of prayer. Sleep remained segmented, but gentler. Monks were allowed slightly more rest. Cold stone demanded it. In farming communities, winter sleep prepared the body for spring. Rest rebuilt strength. Muscles softened. Energy was stored. Sleep was investment. Children slept longer and were rarely woken early. Growth was believed to happen during sleep. Winter was considered a growing season for the body, if not the fields. As winter nights stretched on, sleep and waking blended. There was less distinction. People rested when tired, rose when ready. The night belonged to rest. If you are listening now, you may feel suspended, as though time has slowed. This is the same sensation medieval sleepers described during long winter nights. A gentle detachment. Snow muffled sound. Firelight softened walls. Breathing slowed. The world narrowed to warmth and stillness. As winter slowly turned toward spring, sleep patterns shifted again. But that change came gradually. Nothing sudden, nothing sharp. In the next section, we will explore how medieval sleep changed with summer, short nights, early dawns, and why sleep became lighter and more fragmented as for now remain where you are, wrapped in story, held by night. As winter loosened its hold, the medieval night began to change. Days lengthened, sunlight lingered, and sleep adjusted quietly without resistance. Summer brought shorter nights. Darkness no longer stretched endlessly. Sleep became lighter and often shorter. People rose earlier, not by choice, but by light. Work resumed before sunrise. Fields demanded attention. Animals stirred early. The rhythm of life shifted. First sleep still existed, but it shortened. Second sleep sometimes disappeared entirely. Instead, people rested earlier, rose earlier, and rested again briefly during the day. Sleep bent to necessity. Summer nights were warmer. Beds became simpler. Blankets were removed. Windows opened wider. Fresh air moved freely. With warmth came sound, insects, distant voices, night animals. Sleep was no longer wrapped in silence. People adapted. Some slept outdoors, on porches, near fields, under stars. This was not romanticized. It was practical. Dreams changed with the season. Lighter sleep meant shorter dreams. Dreams faded more quickly upon waking. They were less discussed. Daylight demanded attention. Children slept less and played more. Bedtime shifted. Rules softened. Monasteries adjusted schedules. Earlier prayers. Shorter nights. Sleep was reduced, but balanced with rest periods. Heat was believed to disturb sleep. Physicians advised cooling techniques. Light meals. Cool water on wrists. Herbs placed nearby. Certain foods were avoided at night. Heavy stews. Strong spices. These heated the body. Cooling foods were preferred. Sleeping positions changed again, spreading out. Less layering. Comfort followed temperature. Summer storms influenced sleep. Thunder was unsettling, but expected. Lightning illuminated rooms briefly. Sleep paused, then returned. As dawn arrived earlier, sleep ended more gently. Birdsong replaced bells. Light woke the body naturally. If you are listening now, your awareness may flicker. Moments of listening, moments of drifting. This mirrors summer sleep itself. In the next section, we will explore medieval bedtime sounds, lullabies, chants, and how sound guided sleep long before recorded music. For now, let the rhythm continue. The night remains kind. In the medieval world, sleep was not the silent, uninterrupted block we imagine today. Night arrived slowly, carried in by the fading of daylight, rather than the flip of a switch. When the sun set, households adjusted to darkness instead of fighting it. Candles were precious. Firewood was counted. People listened to the rhythm of night rather than trying to conquer it. Most medieval people practiced what historians now call segmented sleep. They slept in two distinct parts. The first sleep began shortly after dusk, deep and heavy, often lasting 4 hours. This was the sleep of physical recovery, when bodies sank quickly into rest after long days of labor. But then, sometime around midnight, people naturally woke. This waking period was not considered insomnia. It was expected, normal, even useful. For 1 or 2 quiet hours, medieval sleepers prayed, reflected, talked softly, tended fires, checked animals, or even visited neighbors. Monks used this time for matins. Midwives were often called during these hours. Some read by candlelight or simply lay awake, letting thoughts drift. Medical texts of the time encouraged reflection during this window, believing the mind was especially open and calm. Then came the second sleep, lighter, dream-filled, and often more emotional. People returned to bed until dawn, waking with the sun or the sound of church bells. This rhythm aligned closely with natural light and seasonal changes. In winter, nights stretched longer, and so did rest. In summer, sleep shortened naturally. Beds themselves were communal and practical. Families shared mattresses stuffed with straw or wool. Privacy was rare. Warmth mattered more than solitude. Sleep was a social act, not an isolated one. Even travelers expected to share beds at inns, often with strangers. Nighttime fears existed, but they were different from modern anxiety. Darkness was familiar, not threatening. People trusted the night because they lived with it daily. The idea of forcing the body into one long, uninterrupted sleep would have seemed unnatural, even unhealthy. It wasn't until artificial lighting, factory schedules, and industrial timekeeping reshaped daily life that sleep was compressed into a single block. What we now call waking in the night became labeled as a problem rather than a return to something ancient. In the medieval world, waking at midnight was not failure. It was simply part of the night doing what it had always done. As night settled over medieval towns and villages, sleep was rarely entered without preparation. Bedtime was not simply a moment of lying down. It was a ritual, a small ceremony of protection, habit, and belief, performed quietly at the edge of darkness. Many people believed that sleep left the soul vulnerable. When the eyes closed, the spirit loosened its hold on the body. This made bedtime a moment of quiet danger when unseen forces could wander closer. To guard against this, medieval sleepers relied on customs passed down through generations. Before bed, it was common to recite short prayers, not loudly, but in whispers. These prayers were often memorized rather than read, shaped by repetition rather than theology. Some invoked saints known for protection in the night. Saint Michael was a favorite, believed to stand watch over sleeping souls. Others called on guardian angels, asking them to remain nearby until morning. Objects were placed carefully around the bed. A small wooden cross might hang above the headboard. A rosary could be looped around a bedpost. In some regions, iron items, keys, knives, or horseshoe fragments were kept close, as iron was believed to repel malevolent spirits. These items were not displayed proudly. They were tucked away, quietly doing their work. Herbs played an important role in nighttime protection. Lavender, rosemary, and rue were sewn into small cloth pouches and placed beneath pillows or mattresses. Their scent was calming, but their purpose was spiritual as much as practical. Certain plants were thought to confuse wandering spirits or block bad dreams from entering the mind. Dreams themselves were taken seriously. A pleasant dream was seen as a sign of divine favor. A troubling one might be interpreted as a warning. Because of this, many people avoided falling asleep angry or unsettled. Arguments were often postponed until morning. Going to bed in peace was believed to influence the dreams that followed. Children were taught bedtime charms, simple phrases repeated softly as they drifted off. These charms were meant to keep away night terrors and encourage gentle dreams. In rural areas, parents sometimes traced protective symbols on a child's forehead using water or oil before sleep. Even the position of the body mattered. Sleeping flat on the back was sometimes discouraged, as it was thought to invite bad dreams or make the sleeper vulnerable. Many preferred to sleep slightly turned, mirroring the position of the resting Christ depicted in medieval art. Windows were closed tightly at night, not just to keep out the cold, but to prevent spirits from entering. Curtains, when available, were drawn fully. Darkness inside the room was seen as safer than darkness outside. When all rituals were complete, the household settled into stillness. The fire dimmed, voices faded, breathing slowed. Sleep in the medieval world was not taken for granted. It was approached gently, carefully, and with respect. In the medieval world, sleep was not governed by clocks, alarms, or schedules written on paper. It followed the seasons instead, bending gently to the length of the day and the slow turning of the year. Light and darkness were the true timekeepers, and the human body learned to listen to them closely. Winter brought the longest nights, and with them, the deepest rest. As daylight faded early, entire households retreated indoors well before modern evening hours. Candles were precious and used sparingly. Once supper was finished and simple chores were done, there was little reason to remain awake. Silence settled early, and sleep arrived slowly, like a heavy blanket lowering over the world. During winter months, medieval people often slept in longer stretches, sometimes retiring shortly after dusk and rising well after dawn. The cold encouraged stillness. Movement was minimized. Beds became refuges from stone walls and frozen air. Thick woolen blankets, animal pelts, and layered linens were common, even among the poor. Those who could afford it slept on straw mattresses refreshed for warmth and softness. Nightcaps were worn to prevent heat from escaping through the head. Heated stones, bricks, or metal objects warmed near the fire were wrapped in cloth and placed near the feet. In shared homes, beds were pulled closer together. Family members, servants, or travelers slept side by side, not for comfort alone, but for survival. Winter sleep was often broken into two parts. After several hours of rest, many people woke naturally in the middle of the night. This quiet waking period was calm and unhurried. Some prayed softly. Others reflected, mended clothing, or simply lay awake listening to the wind. After a while, sleep returned, gentle and unforced. Summer altered everything. Long days pushed bedtime later. Work in fields, workshops, and markets continued until the light faded fully. Even after sunset, warmth lingered, making sleep slower to arrive. Windows were opened when possible. Doors were left ajar. Curtains were light or absent altogether. Summer sleep was lighter and more fragile. Insects buzzed. Distant sounds traveled farther in warm air. Dreams came and went more easily. Many people woke earlier, rising with the sun rather than against it. To compensate, short daytime rests became common, especially during the hottest hours. These midday pauses were practical and accepted. A brief nap in the shade, against a wall, or inside a cool building restored energy without disrupting nighttime rest. Physicians of the era often praised such habits, believing they balanced the body's humors. Spring and autumn were seasons of adjustment. Sleep patterns shifted gradually as daylight lengthened or shortened. These transitions were sometimes associated with restlessness. Medieval writings describe unsettled dreams during these months, as if the mind, like the world outside, was changing its pace. Seasonal foods were believed to affect sleep as well. Heavy winter meals encouraged long, deep rest. Fresh fruits and lighter dishes in summer were thought to quicken the blood and shorten sleep. Medical advice suggested aligning eating habits with the season to preserve healthy rest. Beds themselves sometimes moved throughout the year. In summer, sleepers positioned themselves closer to airflow. In winter, beds were drawn inward, away from cold stone walls. Curtains were closed tightly. Fires were banked carefully to last through the night. Medieval people did not resist these changes. They adapted. They listened. They slept when darkness asked them to. Sleep was not a battle to be won, but a rhythm to be followed. Quietly, patiently. As the seasons turned, again, for medieval people, dreams were not dismissed as random images of a sleeping brain. They were taken seriously. Dreams were messages, sometimes gentle, sometimes troubling, drifting in from a world just beyond waking life. Night visions were believed to arrive with purpose, and sleep was the doorway through which they passed. Dreams were often divided into categories. Some were thought to come from the body, shaped by hunger, illness, or fatigue. Others were believed to rise from the soul itself, and a rare few were said to be sent from divine or unseen sources, carrying meaning meant to be understood. Because of this, people paid close attention to how they prepared for sleep. What one ate, drank, or thought about before bed was believed to influence the dreams that followed. Heavy meals were said to cause confusing or disturbing visions. A calm evening led to gentler dreams. Falling asleep in prayer was thought to invite clarity and protection. Many households shared dreams in the morning. Around the fire or during simple breakfast meals, people quietly described what they had seen in the night. These stories were not dramatic retellings. They were spoken plainly, almost cautiously, as if the dream might still be listening. Certain dreams were believed to be warnings. A falling dream might suggest loss. A dream of fire could signal change. Animals appearing in dreams were given particular attention, each creature carrying symbolic meaning. These interpretations varied by region and tradition, passed down orally, rather than written. Nightmares were especially feared. They were sometimes described as visits rather than dreams, a heavy presence pressing on the chest, stealing breath. The word nightmare itself comes from the idea of a malevolent spirit sitting upon the sleeper. To prevent this, people placed protective objects near the bed and avoided sleeping flat on their backs. Some believed dreams were more powerful on certain nights. Feast days, full moons, and seasonal turning points were thought to thin the veil between worlds. Dreams on these nights were remembered carefully, often discussed for days afterward. Dreams could also be comforting. Visions of deceased loved ones were common and often welcomed. These dreams were not necessarily signs of grief, but reassurances, a reminder that bonds continued beyond waking life. Medieval scholars attempted to catalog dreams while ordinary people trusted instinct. They knew not every dream mattered, but some did. As the night deepened and the world grew still, the sleeping mind wandered freely, through memory, through fear, through hope. And when morning came, fragments of the night lingered, soft echoes of a world only touched in sleep. When medieval people lay down to sleep, they did so in a world far louder and far quieter than our own. There were no engines humming in the distance, no electric buzz, no constant digital noise. Instead, the night had its own soundscape, one that became deeply woven into the experience of rest. Inside a medieval home, the most familiar nighttime sound was breathing. Not just one sleeper, but many. Entire households often shared a single room. Family members, servants, apprentices, and travelers slept close together. The rise and fall of breath formed a gentle rhythm, steady and reassuring. In time, it became a signal that all was well. The fire was another presence. Even when banked low, embers popped softly. Ash shifted. Occasionally, a log settled with a dull crack. These sounds were comforting, a reminder of warmth and protection against the cold. A silent hearth in winter could feel unsettling, even dangerous. Wooden homes creaked constantly. Beams expanded and contracted with temperature changes. Floors sighed under their own weight. These noises were not alarming. They were expected. The house, like the people inside it, was resting. Beyond the walls, the night carried other voices. Wind moved through thatch and trees. Rain tapped gently against shutters. In rural areas, animals were never far away. A distant cow lowed. A horse shifted in its stall. Chickens murmured softly as they slept. In town, sounds traveled easily through narrow streets. Footsteps echoed. A late passerby coughed. Somewhere a door closed. Bells marked the passing hours for those still awake. Monks, guards, bakers beginning early work. These sounds anchored sleepers in time without fully waking them. Complete silence was rare, and when it came, it could feel unsettling. Sudden quiet often meant snowfall, thick fog, or danger. Many people slept better with familiar sounds surrounding them, even if those sounds were irregular. The bed itself made noise. Straw mattresses rustled. Wool blankets shifted. Linen sheets whispered against skin. These small sounds blended together, forming a cocoon of gentle movement. Light was minimal. Darkness was complete. Shadows pooled in corners and stretched along walls. But this darkness was not feared. It was expected. Eyes adjusted. The mind softened. Windows, when present, were small and shuttered. Curtains muffled drafts and outside noise. In warmer months, open windows allowed night air to flow freely, carrying distant sounds that lulled sleepers into rest. Medieval sleep was not fragile. It adapted. People learned to drift in and out of rest as sounds rose and fell. Waking briefly in the night was normal, even welcomed. Sleep was a tide, not a single plunge into unconsciousness. As the night deepened, the world settled into its own quiet rhythm, breath, embers, wind, and wrapped in those sounds, medieval sleepers rested, not in silence, but in a living, breathing night. In the medieval world, waking in the middle of the night was not considered a problem. It was expected. Sleep was not a single, uninterrupted stretch, but a gentle cycle that unfolded in stages, shaped by darkness rather than schedules. Most people experienced what was known as first sleep and second sleep. After retiring in the evening, they slept deeply for several hours. Then, sometime around midnight, they woke naturally. This waking period was calm and unhurried, lasting anywhere from a few minutes to an hour or more. The house at this time felt different. The fire glowed softly. The world outside was still. There was no pressure to fall back asleep immediately. This was not insomnia. It was simply part of the night. During these hours, people engaged in quiet, restful activities. Some prayed or reflected. Others tended to small tasks, mending clothes, checking animals, or adding wood to the fire. Conversations, if they happened, were whispered. The tone remained gentle and subdued. For many, this midnight waking was a time of clarity. Medieval writers noted that thoughts felt sharper and calmer during these hours. Worries that felt heavy during the day seemed manageable. Decisions were sometimes made in this quiet space when the world felt paused. Not everyone left their bed. Many simply lay awake, thinking or listening. The sounds of the house and village were different now. Fewer footsteps, deeper silence, an occasional distant call or bell. Medical texts of the period considered this pattern healthy. Physicians warned against forcing sleep where it would not come. Resting quietly was believed to benefit the body almost as much as sleep itself. Eventually, drowsiness returned. People drifted into their second sleep, often lighter and filled with dreams. This phase carried them through until morning, when daylight slowly pulled them back into waking life. This rhythm lasted for centuries. It was only disrupted much later when artificial lighting and industrial schedules reshaped the night. Medieval people did not fear waking in darkness. They accepted it. They used it. They rested within it. And when sleep returned, it did so gently, without effort, without struggle, just as naturally as the night itself. In the medieval world, a bed was more than a place to sleep. It was one of the most important objects in the household, valued for warmth, rest, and health. Though simple by modern standards, medieval beds were carefully constructed to provide comfort in a time when sleep mattered deeply. For the wealthy, beds were wooden frames raised off the ground. These frames protected sleepers from drafts, dampness, and insects. Heavy curtains often surrounded the bed, creating a small enclosed space that trapped warmth and muffled sound. These curtains were not symbols of luxury alone. They were practical tools for surviving cold nights. Mattresses were filled with straw, chaff, reeds, or wool. Straw was the most common, replaced regularly to keep it clean and fresh. Wool stuffing, when available, offered greater softness and insulation. Over the mattress lay linen sheets, coarse for everyday use and finer for special occasions. Blankets were thick and heavy, woven from wool. They were layered rather than spread singly, allowing sleepers to adjust warmth throughout the night. In colder months, animal pelts were added on top. These layers created a weighted feeling that many found comforting, helping the body relax into sleep. Pillows were not universal. Some people slept without them, while others used small sacks filled with straw, feathers, or herbs. Herbal pillows were especially popular, believed to promote calm sleep and ward off bad dreams. The scent of lavender or chamomile lingered softly through the night. Those without bed frames slept on pallets laid directly on the floor. These were made of straw bundles or sacks rolled out at night and stored during the day. Though humble, these beds still provided insulation and softness, especially when layered with blankets. Bed sharing was common across all social classes. Families slept together for warmth and safety. Servants shared beds in shifts. Travelers were often offered space beside the hearth or within another's bed. Privacy was rare, but closeness was normal. Beds were also status symbols. In wills, beds were often listed among the most valuable possessions. A well-made bed could be passed down through generations. It represented rest, continuity, and care. At night, beds became small worlds. Curtains drawn, candles extinguished, breathing slowed. Medieval comfort was not about softness alone. It was about warmth, protection, and familiarity. And within these carefully prepared beds, sleep arrived, steady, grounding, and deeply human, night after quiet night. As medieval people prepared for sleep, they paid quiet attention to the body. Though hygiene looked very different from modern routines, the act of readying oneself for rest was deliberate and calm. Night-time was seen as a period of balance, when the body repaired itself through stillness. Washing before bed was common, especially of the hands, face, and feet. Water was cool or gently warmed by the fire. This ritual served both practical and symbolic purposes, cleansing away the day and preparing the body for rest. In some households, scented water infused with herbs was used, believed to promote relaxation. Clothing worn to bed was simple and loose. Long linen shirts were favored, allowing the skin to breathe and preventing chills. Sleeping fully clothed was discouraged by physicians, who believed the body needed freedom to release excess heat and moisture during the night. Hair was often brushed before sleep, not just for cleanliness but to prevent tangling and discomfort. Combs were passed down within families, carved carefully from bone or wood. This small act marked the transition from waking to rest. Medical beliefs shaped nighttime habits. Medieval medicine taught that the body's humors shifted during sleep. Lying down allowed digestion to complete and blood to settle. Physicians advised sleeping on the right side initially, then turning to the left later, to support the stomach and liver. Bathing was less frequent than today, but still valued. When baths occurred, they were often taken earlier in the evening. Warm water relaxed the muscles and encouraged drowsiness. Bathhouses where available were social as well as practical spaces, but quiet was encouraged as night approached. Illness changed sleep patterns. The sick were allowed extra rest and warmth. Caregivers adjusted bedding, food, and sleep positions carefully, believing that proper rest could aid recovery as much as medicine. Scents played a role in nighttime health. Herbs were burned lightly or placed near the bed to purify air. Juniper, sage, and rosemary were common choices. These scents were subtle, meant to soothe rather than overwhelm. Sleep was considered an active process of healing. The body was thought to repair itself best in darkness and quiet. Waking refreshed was a sign of balance. Persistent restlessness suggested imbalance and was treated gently, not forcefully. As night deepened, bodies relaxed, breath slowed, and rest took hold. Sleep was not just an end to the day. It was a form of care practiced nightly, with patience and quiet respect. While most of the medieval world surrendered to sleep, a few remained awake. These night watchers formed a quiet presence, moving slowly through darkness while others rested. Their wakefulness shaped the night in subtle ways, providing reassurance to sleeping communities. In towns and cities, watchmen patrolled streets after sunset. They carried lanterns, staffs, or bells, calling out the hours as they passed. Their voices were steady and measured, not meant to startle, but to remind listeners that time was moving forward and order was maintained. For many sleepers, these distant calls were comforting. Guards at city gates worked in shifts, watching for travelers, fires, or disturbances. Their routines were repetitive and calm. Doors were checked, locks tested, torches adjusted. The night air was cool, and movement was deliberate. Monasteries followed a different rhythm. Monks rose during the night for prayers known as vigils or matins. Their chants drifted softly through stone corridors, barely audible beyond monastery walls. These sounds were not considered disruptions. They were part of the sacred night. In rural areas, farmers occasionally rose to tend animals or check fields. A restless cow, a barking dog, or the sound of weather could pull someone from sleep briefly. These moments were practical interruptions, not burdens. Midwives were among the most trusted night workers. When called, they moved quietly between homes, carrying knowledge passed down through generations. Births often happened at night, and the presence of a midwife brought calm reassurance. Travelers who arrived late were sometimes welcomed in silence, given space near the hearth to rest. Inns settled early, but those within them understood that the road did not always respect daylight. These wakeful figures created a sense of continuity. Someone was always listening, always watching. For those asleep, the knowledge of these watchers softened the darkness. Sleep felt safer when the world was not entirely unconscious. As lantern light moved slowly through streets, and prayers echoed faintly in stone halls, the medieval night remained gently alive, quietly guarded, and patiently waiting for dawn. In the medieval home, the hearth was the heart of evening and the guardian of sleep. Long before beds were entered, the fire shaped the mood of the night, guiding the household gently toward rest. Its presence was steady, warm, and familiar, offering comfort as darkness settled outside. As daylight faded, activity slowly gathered around the hearth. Meals were cooked there. Stories were told there. Quiet work was finished in its glow. When night deepened, the fire was carefully adjusted, not extinguished, but softened. Logs were rearranged. Embers were banked. Flames lowered themselves into a slow, breathing warmth, meant to last through the night. This process was unhurried. Everyone knew the importance of tending the fire properly. Too much flame wasted fuel and risked danger. Too little invited cold and fear. Finding the balance was a practiced skill, passed down through observation rather than instruction. The sound of the fire was deeply soothing. A gentle crackle, a low pop, the soft collapse of ash. These sounds marked the transition from waking life to sleep. Many people felt drowsy while still sitting nearby, heads nodding as the fire whispered softly beside them. In colder months, beds were often positioned close to the hearth. In smaller homes, the sleeping area and the fire shared the same space. Warmth radiated outward, seeping into blankets and bodies alike. Falling asleep near the fire was common, especially for the elderly and the very young. Firelight shaped the room in gentle shadows. Walls flickered. Beams glowed softly. Darkness beyond the fire felt less threatening when its edge was warmed by light. These shifting shadows became part of the nighttime environment, familiar enough to be ignored. There were beliefs tied to the hearth as well. Fire was thought to protect against harm, both physical and unseen. A well-kept hearth symbolized a safe household. Letting the fire die completely at night was avoided whenever possible, especially in winter. Ashes from the hearth were sometimes saved and used for small protective rituals. A pinch placed near the bed was believed to guard against bad dreams. Whether believed fully or simply respected as tradition, these practices brought comfort. As the night progressed, the fire settled further, glowing rather than burning. Its warmth remained steady and reliable. Breathing slowed. Conversation faded. One by one, people drifted toward their beds or pallets. Sleep arrived not suddenly, but gradually, guided by warmth, by shadow, by the steady patience of firelight. And through the long medieval night, the hearth remained, glowing quietly, until morning returned once again. As night deepened over villages, towns, and castles throughout medieval Europe, the rhythm of sleep was surprisingly similar, despite differences in geography, wealth, or culture. From the cold stone halls of northern regions to the sunlit, timber-bird homes of the south, routines were shaped by the same gentle principles: warmth, preparation, quiet, and a gradual surrender to darkness. Evening tasks were completed before bed, and the household slowly settled into silence. Kitchens cooled, fires burned low, and children were gathered near parents or caretakers. Families prepared bedding, straightened straw mattresses, and brushed linen sheets. The act of preparing the bed was itself calming, a signal to the body and mind that the day was ending. In Northern Europe, nights were long and cold. Sleep was layered and heavy. Extra blankets, furs, and nightcaps were commonplace. Candles were kept small to conserve precious wax, and curtains around beds preserved warmth. People in colder regions were accustomed to waking briefly in the night, tending fires or adding straw to mattresses, then returning to sleep. In Southern Europe, warmth shaped sleep differently. Summer nights could be hot and restless. Beds were lighter, blankets minimal, and windows were opened to invite cool air. People often rested briefly in the afternoon to compensate for shorter nights, and beds were sometimes moved closer to open courtyards or breezes to improve comfort. Despite these regional differences, the principles of sleep remained constant. The night was a time of retreat. Sounds were muted. Movements were slow. Families adjusted to the rhythm of darkness rather than forcing it. The body dictated when rest would come. The mind followed. Shared sleep was common across all regions. Children slept with parents. Servants shared spaces with one another. Travelers were welcomed near the hearth or offered a simple pallet. Privacy was secondary to warmth and safety. The sense of community reinforced calm, allowing the mind to relax fully into rest. Across Europe, nighttime rituals repeated night after night. Prayers were whispered. Herbs were placed near the bed. Fires were banked carefully. Candles dimmed. Families and households followed the same gentle routines that had been passed down for generations. Even when life was difficult, when storms rattled roofs or illness visited a home, the night routines persisted. They were stabilizing forces. The familiar act of preparing for sleep, of layering blankets, arranging pillows, or tending embers, reassured the body that it was safe to rest. Sleep in medieval Europe was slow, deliberate, and communal. It was guided not by the hour, but by patterns that had existed for centuries. The repetition of night routines, lighting fires, quiet prayers, careful layering of bedding, became a rhythm that carried people from evening into first sleep, through waking, and into second sleep. As you listen now, your mind may begin to recognize the pattern too. The gentle repetition mirrors your own body's readiness for rest. The night unfolds with its natural rhythm. Breath slows. Muscles relax. Eyes grow heavier. Through the long medieval night, across every region, these repeated routines created a continuity, a sense that no matter the place or the household, sleep was a shared universal experience. And as the night continues, you can allow yourself to drift along with it, moving slowly into your own peaceful rest. In medieval times, sleep was rarely solitary. Families, households, and even travelers often shared the same room, creating a quiet sense of security. This closeness was more than practical. It was calming, allowing bodies and minds to relax fully into the night. Children slept near parents or siblings, bundled in layered blankets and straw mattresses. Their small, warm bodies drew comfort from the presence of others. The soft rhythm of breathing around them acted like a gentle lullaby, guiding them into deeper rest. Even infants found reassurance in this shared warmth, learning from the patterns of breath and sound that the night was safe. Adults, too, rested in shared spaces. Beds or chambers often held multiple people, sometimes separated by light curtains when privacy was possible. The quiet presence of others, the gentle shifting of bodies, and the faint rustle of blankets created an environment of calm. Even brief waking periods in the segmented sleep pattern felt less alarming when someone else was nearby, whether a family member, servant, or fellow traveler. Pets often joined the household sleep space. Dogs, cats, or other animals added gentle movement and warmth. Their quiet breathing and occasional stretch became part of the nightly rhythm, further reassuring those who slept. Fire and bedding reinforced this sense of safety. Fires were banked to last through the night, providing warmth and subtle light. Blankets were layered carefully, straw and furs arranged to protect against cold and drafts. Every small preparation contributed to the feeling of security that allowed medieval sleepers to surrender fully to rest. Even in towns, travelers could be accommodated near the hearth or in a corner of a room, joining others in communal sleep. Knowing that someone was awake nearby, tending the fire, listening for disturbance, or simply present, allowed the mind to let go of worry. Sleep became easier, deeper, and calmer. Shared sleep was a quiet form of care. It was a practice of trust and presence, repeated night after night, season after season. The rhythm of breathing, the soft warmth of bodies, and the gentle protection of blankets and hearth created an environment where the mind could drift and the body could rest fully. As you listen, imagine the soft weight of blankets, the warmth of others nearby, the rhythm of calm breathing. Let the sense of safety wrap around you. With each breath, allow your muscles to relax, your mind to soften, and your body to sink gently into sleep. As the medieval night stretched on, the mind of the sleeper found its own gentle rhythm. Rest was not simply a matter of the body lying still. It was also a matter of letting thoughts drift quietly, without force, without urgency. In those long hours, the mind could wander freely, moving through memory, imagination, and reflection, guided by the soft patterns of darkness and warmth. Sleep and thought were companions. Even as the body rested, the mind moved slowly, like a river meandering through a quiet forest. Memories of the day passed by, soft and fleeting. Tasks completed or left unfinished drifted into the background. Conversations, laughter, the crackle of the fire all became part of the gentle tapestry of night. People in medieval times understood this ebb and flow. They did not fear waking or restless thoughts. To lie awake for a time was natural, even expected. During these hours, the mind was neither rushed nor pressed. It was free to observe, to reflect, and to rest in its own pace. Some people prayed softly. Others hummed quiet tunes or repeated gentle chants. Monks and nuns might rise briefly to walk stone corridors, letting the rhythm of their steps calm both body and mind. Even in ordinary households, individuals sometimes simply lay quietly, listening to the subtle sounds of the home, the whisper of blankets shifting, the gentle hiss of embers, the distant cry of animals in the dark. The mind's drift during these waking hours was slow and deliberate. Thoughts rose and fell like soft waves. Ideas that seemed pressing in daylight lost their weight. The past softened. Plans for tomorrow became background noise. The imagination wandered to landscapes, stories, and memories, all moving gently, never clashing, never demanding. Many medieval people believed that insights and creativity could visit during these hours. A thought or solution might appear quietly, unforced, like a small flame in the dark. This was not considered unusual. It was a natural part of the night, a gift of quiet reflection and mental rest. Even dreams themselves were influenced by these waking hours. Gentle contemplation, soft prayers, and calm thoughts encouraged peaceful second sleep. Nightmares and unrest were minimized when the mind drifted slowly, freely, without pressure. Sleep, in this sense, was both physical and mental, a harmonious blending of body and mind. As you listen now, you may notice your own thoughts softening. Memories drift without urgency. Sensations in the body become subtle, almost distant. Breathing slows. Muscles release tension. The mind floats gently through imagined landscapes, through the quiet rhythm of past nights, guided by the same patterns that medieval sleepers trusted. There is no need to force rest. It comes naturally. There is no need to chase dreams or thoughts. They move past in soft waves, leaving calm in their wake. And as the mind drifts, the body follows, sinking deeper into warmth and quiet, carried by the gentle, unhurried flow of the medieval night. Allow yourself to float in this rhythm. Let go. Let the night take care of you. The long, gentle hours stretch ahead, soft and unbroken, and you move with them, quietly, slowly, peacefully. As the night stretches on, it can be comforting to revisit the gentle patterns of medieval sleep, allowing the mind to settle further, carried by repetition and familiarity. Sleep in the medieval world was shaped not by clocks or rigid schedules, but by natural rhythms, the rise and fall of the sun, the quiet shift of seasons, and the slow pulse of household life. Evening began with preparation. Fires were banked low, blankets were layered, and bedding was adjusted carefully. Beds were arranged for warmth, often shared among family members or household members. Children rested near parents, travelers, and servants near the hearth, and pets curled at the edges of the bed space. Each movement, each adjustment was small and deliberate, designed to preserve comfort and security. Nighttime was segmented. First sleep arrived soon after dusk, deep and restorative. Then came the quiet waking hours, a gentle pause in the middle of the night. During this time, people reflected, whispered prayers, tended the fire, or completed minor tasks. These hours were expected, natural, and even useful. They allowed the mind to drift softly, thoughts wandering freely without urgency. Second sleep followed naturally. Lighter, dream-filled, and calm, it carried sleepers toward morning. Throughout the night, warmth, protection, and quiet reinforced a sense of safety. Thick blankets, layered bedding, and the presence of others cocooned the body, while fires and gentle sounds offered reassurance. Herbs, scents, and whispered prayers added further comfort, subtly soothing the mind. The rhythm of sleep adjusted with the seasons. Winter nights were long and heavy, encouraging deep rest. Summer nights were shorter, lighter, and sometimes punctuated by naps in the afternoon. Spring and autumn were transitional, blending the patterns of cold and warmth, short and long nights, guiding the body gradually through change. Even waking, which might seem disruptive today, was welcomed in the medieval night. It was calm, quiet, and restorative. It allowed reflection, observation, or simply listening to the world at rest. There was no fear in these hours, only gentle awareness, a bridge between the first and second sleep, carrying the body and mind naturally through the night. Beds themselves were central to comfort. Straw mattresses, wool blankets, furs, and nightcaps provided warmth. Shared sleep amplified security. Pets, gentle sounds of the household, and the quiet glow of the fire created an environment where the mind could release tension, where thoughts could drift, and where sleep could arrive gradually, fully, and naturally. Across regions, households, and social classes, these patterns repeated. Though homes varied in construction, size, and wealth, the principles remained the same. Prepare carefully, rest in warmth, share space when needed, and move gently with the rhythm of night. As you listen now, allow yourself to follow these rhythms too. Feel the rise and fall of your own breath. Notice the subtle warmth of your surroundings. Let your mind drift freely, like those in medieval times, moving gently from one thought to the next. The night continues slowly. First sleep, waking, second sleep. Fires glow softly. Blankets shift slightly. Breathing deepens. Muscles relax. Thoughts soften. The world outside fades, leaving only the gentle, quiet rhythm of rest. And in this repetition, this calm echo of centuries past, you can let yourself drift, fully carried by the slow, steady flow of the medieval night. As the long medieval night gradually turns toward dawn, the world outside begins its slow, gentle awakening. But inside the home, in the warmth of beds and under the quiet glow of embers, sleep lingers, unhurried and patient. The rhythm of the night, carefully maintained through centuries of habit and understanding, continues to guide the sleeper toward rest, even as the first light begins to touch the sky. The final hours of the night were often the deepest. Fires had burned down to glowing embers, blankets had shifted to cradle the body, and the household was silent except for the soft rise and fall of breath. Shared sleep still provided warmth and reassurance. The presence of family members, the gentle movements of pets, and the occasional whisper of a caretaker contributed to a cocoon of security, allowing the mind to wander gently in the realm between dreams and waking. As the first hints of light filtered through small windows, the body remained cradled in warmth. Waking was slow, gradual, and natural. There was no rush. There was no alarm to disrupt the mind. The medieval sleeper allowed the sun to guide the body back into consciousness, moving from the deep, restorative cycles of night into the quiet beginnings of day. In these moments, the mind drifted without force. Memories of dreams, gentle reflections on the day ahead, or soft imaginings of past events floated calmly. The rhythm of sleep had prepared the body and mind for waking, and the transition was gentle. Every breath remained slow and steady, muscles released fully, thoughts soft into quiet observation. Even as morning approached, the patterns of the night remained with the sleeper. The comfort of shared space, the warmth of blankets and furs, and the lingering scent of herbs and fires created a sense of continuity. These subtle cues reminded the body that rest had been complete, restorative, and safe. There was a seamless thread between night and day, one that was respected and maintained over centuries of human experience. For those listening now, this is a moment to mirror the medieval night. Allow your own body to continue its gentle rhythm. Let your mind drift freely, as it has been guided through first sleep, the quiet waking hours, second sleep, and now toward the calm arrival of morning. There is no need to move or awaken. Simply remain in the gentle flow of warmth, comfort, and quiet, allowing each breath to deepen and slow. The medieval night was long, measured, and attentive. It was shaped by fire, blankets, shared sleep, herbs, prayers, and patience. It was not rushed or forced, but embraced in its entirety. And as the night fades into morning, the calm it brought remains, echoing softly in the mind and body. Sleep, gentle listener, continues. There is no abrupt ending. There is only the soft, unbroken passage from the stillness of night into the quiet light of dawn. Muscles relax, thoughts soften, breath moves calmly and evenly, and the peace of centuries-old routines carries you fully, deeply, effortlessly into your own restful, uninterrupted sleep. As the night draws ever closer to the early hours of morning, sleep settles fully, deep, and steady. In the medieval world, the patterns of rest repeated quietly and gently, and so too can your own experience of calm and comfort. The warmth of blankets, the faint glow of embers, the subtle breathing of those near you, all of these create a rhythm that continues without interruption. Imagine the slow crackle of a dying fire, the faint hiss of embers settling into warmth. The sound is soft, steady, and predictable. It rises and falls, curling gently into the background of your mind. Like a lullaby the night has whispered for centuries. Each sound signals safety, continuity, and calm. Each pause between sounds gives space for your own body to follow the same rhythm. Feel the blankets resting over your body, layered softly, carrying gentle warmth. Imagine the subtle shift of someone else nearby, perhaps a family member or a small pet, moving without disturbance, creating a steady pattern that the mind recognizes and relaxes into. This presence, quiet and reassuring, wraps around you like an invisible protective layer, letting the mind and body drift more deeply. The medieval night is repeated here in thought and sensation. First sleep, waking, second sleep, each stage blending seamlessly. There is no need to control anything. There is no need to move. Just let your body follow the rhythm it knows. Breath slows. Muscles release. Thoughts become soft, like clouds drifting across a still sky. Visualize the gentle rituals of medieval life. A small pouch of herbs lies by the bed. A whispered prayer has been said. The fire has been banked and glows faintly in the hearth. Every small act is a sign that the night is safe, that the body can rest fully, that sleep can continue. Now, as you drift, the scene repeats softly. The warmth, the gentle breathing, the quiet flicker of light. The soft weight of blankets, they cycle naturally, like the seasons, like the rise and fall of embers, like the rhythm of human hearts across centuries. The mind no longer needs to think, only to observe, only to flow with the calm. Every breath becomes slower, every heartbeat steadier, every muscle melts into softness. The world outside is distant and unimportant. Inside there is warmth, there is quiet, there is calm. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are drifting deeply into sleep. And as the hours stretch on, this gentle repetition continues. First sleep, second sleep, quiet waking, warmth, safety, calm. It loops softly, endlessly, until the body and mind are fully carried into the deepest rest. There is no rush. There is no tension. Only the continuous, unbroken rhythm of the night, as it has existed for centuries. Allow yourself now to simply drift with it, fully supported, fully relaxed, fully safe. The medieval night, the warmth, the hearth, the shared presence all carry you gently, endlessly, into deep, restorative sleep. Now the night stretches fully, soft and endless. There is no need to think, no need to move. The world is quiet. The fire is low. Blankets rest warmly over the body. Breathing is calm, slow, steady. Each inhale draws in gentle warmth. Each exhale lets go of tension. Imagine the medieval bedroom once more. Straw mattresses layered with furs, wool blankets folded carefully, herbs near the pillow, the faint glow of embers casting soft shadows along the walls. All is still. All is safe. All is calm. The presence of others in the room, the rhythm of soft breathing, the quiet household sounds, they wrap you gently in security. Let your mind drift, as it did during first sleep and second sleep. Thoughts rise and fall without effort, like clouds moving across a soft evening sky. Memories of the day fade softly. Plans for tomorrow settle into gentle background whispers. There is only the present calm of warmth, quiet, and safety. Hear the slow crackle of the fire. Feel the gentle rustle of blankets. Sense the quiet breathing of others nearby. Let each sound guide you deeper, carrying you as the night itself carried medieval sleepers for centuries. There is no hurry. There is no noise to startle. Only the soft, endless rhythm of night. Now, allow your body to sink fully. Feet relax. Legs soften. Hips release. Back and shoulders let go. Neck and head feel supported. Hands rest easily. Jaw unclenches. Eyes soften behind closed lids. Every part of you becomes heavier, more relaxed, more comfortable. The medieval night repeats endlessly in thought and sensation. First sleep, waking, second sleep, warmth, safety, calm. Let the gentle pattern cycle over and over. Each breath, each soft sound, each slight shift in weight becomes part of the rhythm that carries you deeper. There is no end, only continuation. No movement, only rest. No thinking, only drifting. No concern, only calm. The night enfolds you completely. You are safe. You are warm. You are at peace. Allow yourself now to sink into this soft repetition. Let your mind drift like a slow river. Let your body float in warmth. Let sleep deepen naturally, carrying you through the hours, uninterrupted, restorative, and gentle. And so the night continues slow, endless, calm just as it has for centuries. First sleep, second sleep, quiet warmth, safety, and the soft rhythm of life itself. Drift now fully and deeply into the restorative embrace of the night.